So, I chose this project because I have been interested in wearable LED technology for a while, which kind of led me down a rabbit hole with all different sorts of microcontrollers. My first projects were on the Arduino Uno, and then I kind of moved towards the ESP32 because it's got better hardware than the Arduino Uno, but it also has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi capabilities, which has a lot more possibility if you're like maybe running an app or something and you can control, say, your LED backpack with an application on your phone. I was planning on using ESP32 actually for this and writing my own code that would display the GIFs on a LED matrix. However, that turns out to be really hard, and so I did change tact. It definitely, well, it was easier, but it also, in using a Raspberry Pi, I got to use a Raspberry Pi for the first time, which I never actually have, and so that was pretty fun. I have it right here. Hi, that's the working thing. This video is totally out of order. You may not even be seeing this part. I may cut it out because I'll kind of be going back and forth between this and soldering. So basically, my Raspberry Pi is hooked up to this Arduino hat. So this is the gear that I used. Raspberry Pi is down here, and what I did is I have a hat that allows me to connect the LED matrix to the Raspberry Pi through this kind of connector, because the Raspberry Pi does not have this type of cable connector native on it. So this hat makes it a lot easier to plug and play. It also provides power to this from the Raspberry Pi, and there's a power port as well. I soldered all of these cable connector pins onto a little pin header, I don't know what you call it, a little plug-in section, so that you can remove it. It's not directly soldered to the Raspberry Pi itself. And yeah, let's get it going. So, now that I finally got it working again, which I'll play a video, I'll put it at the end, of me explaining what was going wrong. Basically, the pins, I think, were just bent and weren't getting a full connection. So this is my program. Well, this is the folder that it's in, gifviewer.py. I did base it off of some code I saw online, so I can't take full credit for it, but I did customize it to do exactly what I need using the library that I'm using here. So we're using the RGB matrix library. I set it to the correct size, 32 by 32, and basically it just goes through and pulls each frame of the GIF and displays it. And I made sure this one was like the main thing I had to play around with a lot. I just set it to 0.1, which I found was the best results. If you had it to like 1, it'd be super duper slow. But without further ado, let's go ahead and show how you launch these. So basically, I just open the terminal in this particular folder, sudo python gifviewer.py, and then you just type in the name of the GIF. So let's try 4D.gif, and bam, look at that. Way cool. And let's try another. Burst. Bam. Way cool. So these are all GIFs that I found online, because I didn't want to have to go through the trouble of like photoshopping all of these GIFs or using some other software to get them so that they were 32 by 32. Because if you played like a high resolution GIF, it would have to be scaled down, and it'd be pretty difficult to get it to actually look good on something that's low resolution. But these GIFs, they look pretty good in my opinion. This is probably one of my favorites. Let's see. This one's pretty cool too. Okay, so after doing my soldering yesterday, I did a lot of work off camera. I got my Raspberry Pi all set up with the board connected to this guy, and I ran through the library that I have been using, well, that I decided I would use and was working great with. They have a bunch of different test codes, they all worked great, and then I had to write my own Python script in order to actually display GIFs, because this library does not actually have the ability to. But it wasn't too complicated, and I had it working last night. I had a whole bunch of GIFs in a folder that I was going through and playing, and I made a critical mistake. I think what happened is that I don't actually have this stabilized. It's really, the hat is just being supported by these pins, which they have like a little, I don't know what you call it, a slot in between them. So it's not just directly soldered onto the Raspberry Pi. But I think one of the data cables got messed up here, or something got messed up here. Because if I try and run, say, just the grayscale block program, this is like the stock one that came with the program, that's supposed to be grayscale. Basically, it would be brightest up here and then lowest up here, so it has like a color gradient. It looked really cool yesterday, and now it looks awful. Which goes to show that if you have it working, if your project works, get some proof of it as soon as you possibly can. Don't say, oh, let me just film this video on the last day, the day the project's due, because it's already working and I've already done a lot of work today. Let me just take a break. Awful idea. So I can show some examples of different GIFs that I can try to play. They don't really work, but let's close that. So this is a 4D GIF, and it looks just stellar. Let's try another, shall we? I have a whole bunch here. They were really cool. It's such a shame. I'm an idiot. I should have given myself more time. Let's try fire. As you can see, it seems to only be the red pixels that are displaying. Something seems to have got messed up with the white, but there's also a lot of other glitches too, so I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's just the fact that like the white or the blue cable got messed up. Let's try it. I don't know. Atom looks cool. So that's supposed to look kind of like the neutron in the middle, and then the electrons going around outside of it. You can kind of see it if you really squint a lot. Another cool one was circles. It's like a bunch of concentric circles that, if you look really closely, kind of like, it's like a whole bunch of rings that, you know what? Yeah. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to try to resolder the connections here on the board and the connector here as a last ditch effort of getting this thing to work, at least somewhat. I mean, it works somewhat, but it just killed. It worked last night. So I'm gonna do some soldering, and hopefully you won't even see this, because I'd love to just cut it out and act like this never happened. Well, there you have it. That was the story of my LED project. I hope you liked it. It's really scary because I thought I was really worried today that I would be explaining how it worked last night and they never took a video of it. And eventually, by resoldering and putting some like double-sided tape to support the hat, one of those two things got it to work. So very relieved that I'm not turning in something that doesn't actually work. Hope you thought it was cool.